You've said that treasuries are a terrible bet, and you're anticipating the kind of inflationary trend that will manifest itself in falling treasury prices and in rising hard asset prices.
But I mean, I would say, I'm not talking about the next 3 months. This is a trade to buy treasuries here. I wouldn't do it because treasuries have rallied now between 1981 and essentially 2008. The rally, the gravy is out of the treasury bond market rally. You're dealing now with minor moves. But in the long run, over the next 5 to 10 years, I don't see any value in owning a 10 years treasury or a 30 years treasury at yields between, say, 2.95% and 4%.
Right. Would you expecting those to go?
I think
go much higher over the next years?
Much higher. Because I remember in 1970, the 10 years yield was at 10%. Nobody dreamt that it could go to over 15%, and it happened. And by the way, in the 1940s, the yield was at 2%. Do you think anybody ever dreamt that they would go up to 15%? It can happen, a lot of things can happen, and usually movements in interest rates and in commodities, they go further than what people think.
Okay, let's take a little bit longer term view, and I'll pose the question this way. You've lived much of your life overseas in Asia.
Yes, correct.
If you were to counsel a 20-year-old American today, say, go pick a country, go live there, go make your fortune there, where would you tell them to go?
Well, that depends obviously on preferences. I like Asian women, but maybe somebody else likes Brazilians or Cubans or Russians or Eastern Europeans. I mean, there are lots of things to consider. Everybody has his individual personality and his likings and his less likings and so forth. So this is something that is important to consider. It also depends what he wants to do and whether he gets a good opportunity. I was lucky because in 1970, an American investment bank said, Mark, we want you to go to Asia and build up the business. So then I had an employer that paid essentially my apprentice money at that time in Asia. If you have no money and you arrive in Asia and you don't speak today Chinese or any Asian language, you may have a tough time to start. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's maybe a harder way. But there are many ways to go to Asia. You can go, say, if you're in the hospitality industry, you can work in a hotel in Asia, or if you're in the financial industry, you can work in the financial industry in Asia, and so there are plenty of opportunities.
Well, which countries do you think of? Let's assume you're either blind or asexual or both, and so you don't care about Asian women. Now, what economy do you want to build your fortune in?
Well, you see, I live in Thailand because I happen to like Thailand, and I don't need to build a fortune anymore. It's a question to preserve what I have, and more than that, I don't need. But if I were 20, I would probably go to Vietnam or maybe Mongolia or China. Depends also a little bit where in China. Or depending on the condition, possibly also Singapore, Hong Kong or India. These would be places I would consider. And Latin America, of course.
Okay, and then for the older investor, you recommend those same markets as a long
well, investment? I think as an investor, you should essentially invest in a diversified portfolio of assets. I happen to find in Asia stocks, they're obviously no longer as cheap as they were in March 2009, but say you could assemble a portfolio of stocks with a dividend yield of around 5%. And in my opinion, that portfolio of shares will fluctuate, but I think it will be a better investment over the next 10 years than cash at 0 interest rates and treasury bonds at 3% interest rate. Do you understand? So I would recommend a diversified portfolio of some Asian shares, yes.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Yes,
appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.